You know what time it
Time to
is.
stand up and speak your mind. In this elitist jungle, keep the beats alive. Whether yoga or doja that keeps you high. Gotta stay up, cause on the street you die. Time to wake up and see the light. Stop counting sheep, seize your life. Free your eyes and see suns rise on the horizon. Where the street meets the sky. The master's ignorance feeds our master's greed.
Yeah, man. What's going on, everybody? That's it. That's the intro after the intro music. Yes, I got my shirt on, my dungaree working uniform on. You know what time that means. Let's see. Where did we leave off last time? Where do we... you know what? I came to... So, I was out and about after I told the last Navy stories and made that podcast. And during that podcast, I could not remember what you call the boot camp instructors from Navy boot camp. I said they were drill instructors, which is not what they're called in the Navy. They are RDCs, which is Recruit Division Commander, I believe. RDC. And how I came about this was I was getting gas on my way up north and stopped at the gas station. And as I came out, I saw some folks in uniform, big van, Navy van, and the woman in her dress uniform. And I started talking to them. And she was a recruiter, and he was driving the van, working. I'm not exactly sure, but anyway, recruit types, recruiters. And I asked them, I just thanked them for their service, and then talked about being in the Navy, and talked a little bit about it. And then I asked them, hey, what do they call the drill instructors in boot camp? I completely forgot. And they told me RDC, Recruit Division Commander. And I was actually going to look that up to see if that was the case. I think that's the case. Recruit Division Commander. Navy Boot Camp Instructor. Navy boot camp instructor. Let's see what it says. What? No. Recruit training command. Boot camp. Nope. Here we go. RDCs, Recruit Division Commander. Booyah! Thanks, Googler. Anyway, so RDCs, I wanted to correct myself from the previous podcast, so I wrote that. We were talking about boot camp. Boot camp was a really cool... I'll say this about the Navy. It was difficult. It was challenging. And all through, when I look back at it, I think to myself, I would do it all over again. It was a great experience. It was awesome. Took me a while to get there, no doubt. As a young man, a lot of stuff sucked. But going through that suck is what builds character, right? Going through the suck, willingly taking on responsibility. And anyway, RDCs. So boot camp. I do have a story about my good friend that I grew up with. He had finished boot camp prior to me getting there, and he was across the street at the training center, prepping for his A school. And so during my time there, I told him what barracks I was in, and he was able, because he's now a sailor, he's able to travel across bases. So he came over and saw me, and I asked, Chief Fortin and Petty Officer Spencer if that was cool. They said, yeah, that's totally cool. And so he came across, he came over from the training center and came to visit me at boot camp. And they let me go out with him and walk around a little bit and chat. My man, my man. I don't want to name drop too much, without asking people's permission. But, it was a dude I went to high school with, and it was a friend of mine. I think elementary, junior high, and high school. We grew up in the Knolls together in Upland. Grew up in Upland, Cali, baby. 91786. Yeah, man, that was my homie. He went on to go on. He was another young man that wanted to be a SEAL, and he went off to go to Buds. And I think he went 3 different times, got injured, and they medicaled him out. Just his knee, and yeah, honor in that, man. I mean, 3 times, shit, that sucks, But if the knee don't go, the knee don't go. Sometimes that's the way. Sometimes that's what happens. You know what I mean? Yeah, my man. Shout out if you're listening. I don't know if you are, brother, but if you're listening. Shout out. I think you know who you are. Came to visit me in boot camp, man. That was really cool. That was a really cool experience. Another awesome story that I have was this cat that I knew in junior high. Me and him and I were, dude, we were junior high homies doing the fucking breakdancing and shit, b-boying together. And he joined up like a year before I did, right after high school. Actually, I knew him in 8th grade and 9th grade, and then I believe it was his sophomore year in high school. He moved from Upland up to, like Apple Valley, Hesperia, the high desert area, and then ended up graduating from high school there. I remember going to visit him a couple of times, went to his high school graduation and everything, and I knew he was joining the Navy. I think he even came down to one of the other neighbors' house, another kid we grew up with, because he knew that his parents always lived there, on the corner there. They lived on the corner there, and 13th and 13th Street and 13th Avenue, right on the corner. You guys know who you are if you're listening. The great family. Father was a Marine, brother and sister. Sister was a year younger than us. And I went to elementary with them on up through high school and still know them today. Anyway, my buddy who had moved, he came back down. He came back down looking for me on Liberty and went to their house because he knew they lived there, but I had moved out of my house. So anyway, and I had heard through the grapevine, through mom and dad, and I can't remember if I was on could have been on Facebook or something. Or probably just talked to one of them and found out that he had come stop by looking for me in his uniform and stuff, which was cool. And I knew he joined, and then I also knew he got stationed in San Diego, but we never ran into each other. We had lost contact. So one day I had gotten a stereo put in my 96 Tacoma. I went and got a system put in. It was pretty dope. It was a pretty dope system. And I can't remember. I was going back. I don't remember why, but I needed to go back to the place where I bought the stereo and talk to those folks. Some issue. And there was this dude standing in front of me, and he's kind of yoked up, big arms. This brother, and he was taking his sweet time, and I remember thinking, dude, what the fuck is up with this guy, dude? Doesn't he know that other people have things to do here? Right? Being a total dick in my head. I'm fucking being a dick. Being a cunt in my head. Maybe I am a cunt. Anyway, you know how it goes. Sometimes people are just like, dude, come on, man. Your issue isn't important as mine. Ego. And anyway, he kind of turns aside, and I get a side profile. I'm standing over there, and I get a side profile. And holy shit, if it isn't my boy that I went to junior high with. If it isn't, and he hadn't seen me yet. And so I was like, this is perfect. So I reached under his bicep, big old bicep, this motherfucker. Now, mind you, this dude was skinny dude in high school, right? Slender, a little bit taller than I was, but a slender dude. I mean, my man's was slender. And this dude was yoked up. That's why I didn't. Anyway, when I saw him, I was like, no way. So I grabbed him by his fucking big old bicep and I fucking yanked him around. I was like, hey, man, there are other people here waiting to do, to. And his eyes lit up as he turned at first, was like, what the fuck, as anybody would, right? And turned around like, what the fuck, bro? Oh, fucking no way. Just fucking big hug. Huge hug. How many times did I just say the F word? I noticed last Navy stories, I was saying the F word a ton. And I've made a mental note on the Yodas deal. I say, when I start telling stories, man, it's fucking this and fucking that and fucking, especially Navy stories. My mom tells me that when I got out of the Navy, it was like every other word. Every other word was the F-bomb. Anyway, I've been working on being out here with you guys and doing podcasting and working on just articulating more. I've mentioned that before. Anyway, so there he is. There he is, dude. And he recognizes me, and there's that joke. Oh, no way, and a big hug. And when we were growing up, he went by his middle name because he didn't like his first name, so he went by his middle name. And his middle name was cool. But when I called him by that, he says, oh, I go by my first name now. And because Navy, that's your name. That's what your name is. And so I was like, right on, cool. And I said, hey, dude, I know you've been here in San Diego. And he's like, you too. And I was like, what station are you? Where are you stationed? What command are you at? And he said, the USS Constellation. I was like, what? Wait, hold on, man. I'm on the Connie. You mean to tell me you've been on the Connie this whole time, the last 2.5 years? He's like, no. I just got transferred there. And I'll be there in 14 days after he was on leave. No way. Yep, for sure. I was like, I'm on the Connie, dude. He was like, no way. What? And so my man got stationed on the same ship. Sure enough, a couple weeks later. And the cool thing about my dude is that his rate was navigation. So he worked up in the bridge doing charts. I can't remember. Let me look that up while we do this. Navy chart cartographer. Anyway, cartographer, is that what they do? IS. Anyway, he was a navigation dude. Worked up there on the bridge with the fucking skipper, right? Worked with the skipper. It was awesome. I mean, anyone could go up to the bridge. You had permission to go up to the bridge and you can go up there. And I had gone up there and you can watch, but not like this, not where I could go down below into where the admiral chamber was. And I had probably been there too. So on top of the bridge, the captain and where they drive is up above with all the windows, right? Up in the tower, the superstructure. That's the big tower you see on the aircraft carrier. So the top level, that's the bridge, right? That's where they steer the ship. They have one of those big light tables, and that's where they put the charts on there and do the navigation. And that's what my buddy did. Petty officer at this point, probably second class when I met him. I want to say PO2. So PO2, he worked up there, and him and the skipper were on a first name basis. He would say, "What's up, Captain Kelly?" What was Kelly's first name? It was Captain Kelly. Was it Jamie Kelly, perhaps? The captain with two girls' names, Jamie Kelly. And Kelly was a cool captain, cool skipper. He was the skipper with us when we sailed home during 9/11. If I'm correct. If I'm correct, that will lead me into the 9/11 story. We'll get there. Anyway, Norm and he worked up there. So when we went on deployment together, we had Westpac coming up, and that's the Western Pacific cruise. And we leave from San Diego and we go we leave from San Diego and we go into the Indian Ocean, South China Sea area, Indian Ocean, into the Gulf and the Indian Ocean, the Arabian Gulf, and then we come back down south around Australia. Anyway, that's a Western Pacific cruise into the Gulf. But the cool thing was, here's my buddy, right? And he shows up on the ship, man. Haven't seen him in years. And he works up there with the skipper. And so we were on deployment, and we would be out at sea, and I could go upstairs, right? And the skipper would be walking around, and I got to meet the skipper a little bit and salute, and do the whole deal. And they kind of have a little, the way they do it up there on the bridge, because they're around the officers all day long. One salute in the morning, and then if I see you again during the day, the same officer. You don't have to keep saluting all the time, right? Well, makes sense. But it would be the first one, So I see the skipper, attention on deck, boom. And I believe there may have always been of course, when the skipper walks on, it's not always attention on deck every time, but it is. Skip. Okay, go. Carry on. As you fucking were, you slime bags, you scuzz balls, you pollywogs. Who was it I was listening to the other day, and they were talking about that? It might have been old Jocko talking about Wog Day when you're a pollywog. So yeah, my buddy, that was really cool. Yeah, him and I became golden shellbacks together, as did everybody on that cruise. That was the cruise in 2001. Wasn't the final voyage of the Connie, though it was one of her last. She may have done one more deployment after that, one more underway, and then they mothballed her. They may have done two. I can't remember. I don't recall. I know she did at least one more deployment, and then they mothballed her, sent her to Bremerton. I did some time in Bremerton too, which was another cool story. See, all the stories start blending. Bremerton. And the Bremelows. Yeah, that was rad, man. Met my buddy. We got to do some Liberty together, out and about in the world, which was really cool. I don't remember where we hung out. Probably in Sydney at some point, and definitely the Gulf. The sandbox in the Gulf was a trip. United Arab Emirates was a trip. That's another story. See, as we go through this, I'm thinking up stuff. The Dubai story. Abduction. Ooh, at the mall. That was a wild story. Yeah, that's one of those stories that I wonder, over the years I've told the story at the mall in Dubai with my buddy, with my shipmate. And that's one of those stories that I'm sure that I've embellished over the years, telling stories, storytelling. But I think the basis of the story is still, and I'll embellish. I embellish everything. We embellish. That's theatrics. Fucking Americans are so fucking theatrical. Stupid Americans. What is that from? Is that from the Tool album? Stupid Americans. Learn to swim, learn to swim, learn to swim. Mom's gonna flush it all away. Whoa, lost track there a little bit. Let's bring it back full circle here. Full circle. How long have we been going? 20 minutes. It's interesting. Boot camp was really cool. It was really freaking cold over there in Chicago, in Great Lakes, Illinois, in December. It was cold. Now, I've mentioned this to some Chicagoans or some folks from that northern U.S. region, and they've told me that December, that's not winter. And I remember it being cold. I remember being cold, so cold. And this is an interesting thing that I always remember from the Navy. So once we graduated from boot camp, we went over to the training center, the other training center, the school, where I went to Airman Apprenticeship School. And in Airman Apprenticeship School, we lived in a barracks. I think it was 7 stories. And on the first floor was the chow hall, and on the second half was like the Liberty area. So they had pool tables, they had video games, snack machines, lounging, reading. It was like the lounge area. And then the building was, I believe it was like an octagon shape. And in the center of the building, there was a gazebo, and that was where we smoked. That was the smoke deck. And so we'd go out to the smoke deck, and I wouldn't want to go up to the 5th floor and get my jacket, and I didn't want to carry my coat around with me. So inside the building, we'd be in this uniform, the dungaree. And I may have had a long sleeve. I probably did. I believe we had long sleeve and we had short sleeve dungarees. I may have had at least a long sleeve on. But I would go outside to have a cigarette, and it would be fucking cold as shit out there. Super cold. And I'm Cali boy. I ain't used to cold. I don't call 60s cold to me. And it's like 10 below. And there's the wind chill. Luckily, you're in the center of this thing in the courtyard. That helps. But you would go out there and you'd be shivering, having a cigarette. It's so cold. Freezing your asses off. But I remember having a thought that, you know what, man, and you're shaking and you're tense. And I thought, you know what, let me just relax, dude. Just relax. Let your shoulders drop and relax. Okay, cool. Yes, it's cold. Yes, it sucks. But I'm not freezing my ass off out here. I can relax, and you can be calm in the cold. It's almost like getting in the shower. There's that breathing cold shower or like a cold dip, right? That's what it feels like. Just relax into it as much as you can. And if you tense up, that's when you start to do all the shaking. Now, if your body's obviously hypothermic, you're not going to go hyperthermic out there in just 5-7 minute time that you're going to smoke a cigarette or two, 10 minutes. And so you just relax. And I always remember that was what I learned there in boot camp. And I've taken that with me. And the cool thing is when I returned home in December, so let's see, I spent Christmas in Chicago, and then I was home for New Year's back to California. And where I lived in California, we lived in the foothills of the mountains. So we were a couple thousand feet higher than sea level. So it gets a little bit chilly. And I think it was probably like 50 degrees outside, maybe a little bit less than that. It was chilly, which would have been super chilly for a Californian who's acclimated to that temperature. That's chilly, jackets and stuff. But I, coming from Chicago, having spent Christmas in Chicago, snow, freezing, 20 degree with the wind chill, earmuffs, that kind of weather, I had acclimated myself to that. So I'm standing out here, 45, 50 degree weather in shorts and a fucking wife beater. And I'm chilling, relaxed. Like, this ain't cold, man. They're looking at me like, dude, you're not Berg. What the fuck are you doing? Dude, it's fucking freezing out here. I'm like, man, this is warm. Good to be back in Cali warm, man. You know what I mean? 50 degrees? No, I'm used to 40 degrees cooler than that. Yeah. Let 60 degrees cooler than that. Think about that. That's a freaking huge difference. -10. right? -2, -3. So from 50 to 0, that's 50 plus 10, -20 on the wind chill. I mean, we're talking, that's cold. 50 degrees, whew, I'm sweating, son. Took that from the Navy. Yeah, so next time you're in the cold, give that a shot. Just relax, let your shoulders drop. It's a little bit chilly, but as long as there's some warmth nearby, you'll be all right. You'll make it, man. You can make it. So I'm working on my flashcards too, as I'm remembering, so that I can have some stories to tell in the future. Yeah, San Diego was cool. So boot camp, and then I got out of San Diego. Oh, that's another story. That's another killer story. So I had Liberty after boot camp, and I went home for 2 weeks, post boot camp Liberty. And that was a good time. I have a couple of different. It was the strip club. In my whites. Or was it my dress blues? Because it was winter time. Anyway, in my dress uni. That was on leave. But then two of my buddies drove me back from home to my command, to the Connie in San Diego, and we decided we were going to go early, and we went to TJ. That's a good TJ. The TJ story. That was a brilliant fucking idea. The brilliance of young men, 19 years old. Let's go to TJ. Fucking, you could go to TJ back then. I don't know anymore if you can't. I don't know how TJ is. I wonder if you can still go down there like we used to. We used to do that in the Navy too. TJ, I have several TJ stories too. Several Tijuana stories, man. One of them wraps around from Tijuana to Bremerton, all the way from Tijuana to Bremerton, Washington. Oh, that's a TJ to Bremelo. Anyway, guys, so that's just getting more into the Navy here a little bit. Man, we might have to do some long pods, huh? And just tell stories, make these pods long and not try to fit it into 30 minutes so that I can just ramble on and on and on and ramble and rant and rave about this and that in the Navy. In the Navy, you can sail the 7 seas. In the Navy, you can put your mind at ease. The night before I went to boot camp, my mom played that song. My mom and my stepdad played that song at least 136 times in a row. Oh, can you imagine? There was a girl that lived upstairs, and a couple of my homies, a couple of my dudes that I grew up with, came down to San Pedro, California, and we had a party that night. My send-off party, right? And so we were upstairs partying with the chick upstairs, and she had some friends over. And I could hear, we'd be out on the balcony having a smoke, and I could hear from down below, in the Navy, you can. They would turn it up, and they would be looking up. Oh, my God, are you kidding me? At least minimum 136 times. Minimum. Thanks, Mom. Shout out, Mom. Shout out, stepdad. Yep. Shout out, Mom. In the Navy. That's a fucking that story. Dang, the night before boot camp at MEPS, full bathtub full of beer, Partiers, man. Fucking partying when you're a kid. Yep.
You know what time it
Time to
is.
stand up and speak your mind. In this elitist jungle, keep the beats alive. Whether yoga or doja that keeps you high. Gotta stay up, cause on the street you die. Time to wake up and see the light. Stop counting sheep, seize your life. Free your eyes and see suns rise on the horizon. Where the street meets the sky.
The masses' ignorance feeds our masters' greed. Open your mind and read some chapters.